Intent today is to go over our climate action plan that was recently passed by council last April, and to talk about some of the near-term actions that are taking place now in terms of follow-up and implementation of that plan. So I am going to jump into it, but I would encourage questions and interruptions. Ron, I'll leave it to you to coordinate that as far as whether people have questions from the chat or if somebody wants to unmute. But really, my preference is to interact. I don't know exactly what people want to hear about, but I want to be a useful resource, and so that's the intent. So as you know, as Ron indicated at the beginning, this is all about sustainability, climate change. My name is Ben Sullivan. I'm the Energy Program Manager for the City and County's Office of Climate Change, Sustainability, and Resiliency. And we are a small office within the City and County attached to the Managing Director's office, whose job it is to really help facilitate climate action across the entire city. And that includes both adaptation and greenhouse gas mitigation. My program, the Energy Program, is specifically oriented towards carbon reduction, greenhouse gas mitigation. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. So for those who know, the Climate Action Plan was just passed by City Council last April and really sets the landscape for us for the next 5 years in terms of policies and programs that are going to help the city, help the island of Oahu to reduce our emissions in line with state goals. So Ordinance 2047, as a lot of you know, really aligns again with the 2045 goal of net neutral or negative, as the state likes to remind us, by 2045. Incredibly ambitious transition that we have underway. Not going to spend a lot of time here, but obviously aligns very much with the Paris Agreement and other international efforts to mitigate climate change. So we all know that we got to do this, but I think we also all know that there's a lot of benefits to doing this. And so this is really just a little collage that just reminds us that, you know, in terms of greenhouse gas mitigation and direct emissions, a lot of this is about energy use. And so that energy use falls into a couple of primary areas. One is transportation, certainly, and another is buildings and electricity. And those increasingly kind of intersect with each other. And you see some images here. We've got a wonderful bus system that, you know, everybody should be a rider on. Personally, I'm a rider. I don't own a vehicle. I ride the bus everywhere I go, and likely pick up a bicycle here pretty soon as well to augment that. You can see the electric vehicles are a big part of this, and we'll talk more about that. You know, pedestrian-friendly environments and complete streets is critical to all this as well. So how did we get here, and what does the community think of it? You know, the Office of Climate Change, Sustainability, and Resiliency went through a very robust process with community to establish the Climate Action Plan, and, you know, found a lot of really positive feedback in terms of where we should go. Some really notable items on here, but certainly a lot of these images are familiar to folks. You know, what can we do to improve bus service is always a question. What can we do to improve performance within buildings? And we're going to talk more about that. And then you know, how do we get serious about this? And so that's what we're doing. You know, the resilience strategy from our office also lays some of this out. Again, lots of outreach that took place. I'm not going to spend time here. Getting into it, right? So the Climate Action Plan is about the next 5 years of action. And this is about reducing our emissions in the near term so that we stay on track to our ultimate target of zero emissions or better by 2045. As you can see, we're not seeing significant downward progress yet. And in fact, we're kind of inking up into 2019. We'll have the 2020 greenhouse gas inventory completed soon, and we can see how we did, hopefully better. But certainly transportation emissions has always been a challenging one, and everyone's working hard on that. So what's in the Climate Action Plan? So as I was talking about earlier, you know, the big sectors for emissions reductions, as we all know, electricity and transportation, and then a little bit of waste. Obviously, there's a lot more behind this when you start talking about embodied emissions. The plan that we have laid out today is really about direct emissions and those that we have the most access and responsibility for as a municipality. So a little sampling of some of these actions. And so this is, you know, these are the strategies 1 through 4 in the ground transportation area of the plan. And so really talking about what are the key aspects of this. I think, again, this is a really high level overview. So talking about land use planning and, you know, transit oriented development, talking about multiple modes of transportation. I don't know how many people on the call are Beaky users, but here on Oahu, it's just a great amenity that adds a lot of value to the bus. So, you know, one of the ways the bus really works for me as a non-car owner is that I'm able to just jump on a Beaky and get across town if I need to get from my office over across the Capitol to downtown. It takes just 5 minutes and really works. It's much better than driving a car and having to park it and move it and park it and pay for parking and all that stuff. Mode shift through parking efficiency. There we go. I set myself up perfectly for that. So one of the recent actions that the city participated in and that's making a big difference is taking away the mandate that developers have a certain amount of parking and instead leaving it up to the developer to determine how much parking they need based on the market. And so this is Bill 2 that I'm referring to, makes a really big difference in terms of how people realize their development and how the market can now respond. If you want to go out and buy a condo and you don't need as much parking, maybe the market can now offer you something that isn't 2 spaces, instead it's 1 space, or maybe even no parking, and you can get a better value for it. Lastly, leading by example with fleet electrification. I saw my good friend and colleague, Riley Saito from Hawaii Island on the call. He and I have really in-depth conversations on this all the time. I know they're making great progress over there, and the city is really gearing up and doing the same. We're very, very eager to electrify our fleet, and that's part of something I'll talk about a little more as well. So buildings and energy.
Ben, since I want to keep this interactive, one of the interesting things that came up, we had a conversation earlier today with the head of sustainability for the city of Los Angeles. And what they're doing for all their streets is rapidly changing the color of the paint to make it not as dark, quite honestly. Then they referenced satellite imagery that shows that by changing the paint surface on their streets, they're reducing the temperature, thereby reducing wear on tires, making it cooler, making the whole city more energy efficient. Is that part of your plans as well? Have you heard about that?
So urban heat island is definitely something that is on our radar. I'm not going to comment on the paint, but what I will say is there's definitely some strategies around tree canopies that specifically think about the urban heat island effect. And then certainly also within our energy codes, we pay attention to, and I know Hawaii Energy does too, in terms of, the reflectance of rooftops. And it's all, Ron, just geared around that exact question, right? Is how do we manage temperatures in urban environments and avoid excessive heat, both for the benefit of those outside, but also for the benefit of reducing energy loads on buildings. Okay. Hopefully that's responsive.
Yep. I just want to keep it interactive and
I do
tie
too.
this together.
So keep it coming, please. So again, buildings and energy, we're going to talk a little bit more about our benchmarking policy, which we're really excited about in a minute or two. How am I doing? I got, 5 more minutes, something like that, Ron?
No, we got 10, 15. We're fine.
10 minutes. Okay. So
we're fine.
So obviously energy efficiency, one of the things the city is doing right now is an aggressive retrofit on all of our facilities. And so we entered into a performance contract with Johnson Controls, and they are doing a very comprehensive job looking at energy efficiency and renewable energy opportunities across the gamut of facilities. Department of Parks and Recreation notably is also doing a performance contract, and they are underway as well with a separate contractor, both leading to the same end, which is really reducing our emissions, saving ourselves money, creating more comfortable buildings, all of the above. So excellent work happening there. Don't forget about waste, right? We all know this, and there's been some great efforts already. But one of them being this Action 8.1, obviously something that was very much in full swing before the pandemic, which was policies that eliminate the use of single-use plastics and push the industry and encourage the industry towards multi-use foodware and serviceware and/or compostable food and serviceware. That was delayed due to the pandemic, but is again coming up for implementation in the next couple of months, and so that'll be a big impact on our waste stream. There are many other aspects of this. We have a new director at the Department of Environmental Services who is working with his team and really thinking hard about how to address methane capture opportunities, and we look forward to that progressing as well, Ron.
What's interesting, it's interesting seeing commonalities, and you can see this. The folks at Orange County Waste and Recovery, that's one of the largest counties on the mainland in California. What they're doing exactly the same thing. They switch their focus strategically from the W in their name to the R, mainly switching from waste to recycling, circular economy. And it's very interesting how their landfills are now one of their biggest strategic sources of clean/renewable energy in terms of their gas capture.
Absolutely. Well, not only gas capture, but also it's available land area, for potential solar development as well. And I think ENV has their eyes on that just as much. So great point. Appreciate that. And then, for methane, really it's a win all around because you can reduce the waste stream and get a valuable resource. And so Again, referencing Riley, I know there's always a question about what you're going to do with it. And I think my friend Riley would say hydrogen. And so for us, we may have some different choices as to how to use it. And certainly part of that currently, Ron, for those that are interested, is some of it goes to Hawaii Gas in a contract we have with them where they clean it up and put it in their pipeline. And then we also have some cogeneration facilities for the wastewater plants that are in the works as well. So a lot of different opportunities with regards to biogas generation and wastewater in general, right? Very energy intensive, but also very opportunistic for that. So great little sidebar there. Lots going on. You're seeing photos of electric buses and I think the big PV array at Board of Water Supply, some of our outreach. I think this is maybe one of the, I don't know if that's King Street or a different dedicated bus only lane, but that is about increasing the service for bus so that more people want to ride it, right? So great there. And then this picture of parking is obviously talking about how do we decouple parking from development, and at minimum, how do we let developers determine how much parking they should put in a project instead of, the age-old way was to say you must have X amount of parking, and that just always led to too much. So I'm going to skip this slide because I think it might be out of context. This was an annual sustainability report that we put out last year. The next one is coming and should be out by Earth Day, so look forward to it. We do a lot of measurement within the city and county, and our office is responsible for the measurement on the sustainability side. If anyone has questions, they're welcome to follow up with me. Our website has more information on this, so I won't dwell on it. That one we saw. I wanted to spend just a couple of minutes talking specifically about buildings and energy, and then diving into actually the benchmarking policy, which I've been on calls with several of you already to talk about this. I'm just going to hit it briefly, but when we think about buildings, we recognize that a good 35% of our energy and therefore our emissions is coming from the built environment, and the question becomes, what can we do about it? Obviously, there's several aspects of this. So new energy codes are really an important part of this, and that's a very important and intensive interactive piece that we have to manage with developers and contractors and architects and engineers all around the island to understand how to implement the code here locally in the most efficient way. And there's real tensions between what is the upfront cost of development and what is the long-term objective. And the only way to address those tensions is really to have a lot of dialogue with those involved to understand better where the right compromises can be made, always looking at that North Star of a healthy economy and a healthy planet in terms of our 2045 goals. So you can see I talked about our municipal efforts to reduce energy, but also that includes some benchmarking to lead by example. Community benchmarking is the next big policy. So we are expecting that council will introduce an ordinance very soon that will require buildings over a certain square footage to benchmark their energy and water use, importantly, both energy and water. And hopefully that will lead, and as it has in many other places, lead to significant reductions in energy and opportunities to help save further. So what does it look like? Benchmarking, right? This is the analogy that everyone likes to use, is the energy guide tags you see on appliances. And it's basically just making the market aware of how buildings are performing the same way you're aware of how a washer, a dryer, or refrigerator performs at Home Depot. So we're playing with this idea of the yellow sticker, maybe something better looking than that on the building, but that's the idea. Benchmarking is used across the country. These are cities and states that have policies in all different flavors. Ours will not require any performance here in the city and county as we anticipate it, but it will include multi-unit buildings, which we think is really, really important because it opens up an opportunity for savings and for reducing energy burden.